So welcome everybody to our Magnification Call for February 7th, 2021. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. As I was saying before I hit record, Mr. Evans asked his excuses for this evening, that we excuse him for this evening. It's his son Michael's birthday that they're celebrating tonight, so he is not going to be able to make it, but I will be delivering our message for this evening, and I am super excited to do so. To start out, I want to share with you this experience that I just had not an hour ago. And to do that, I'm going to share this picture with you. So these two young men are James Thompson and Paul Chavez, who are friends of mine. And when everything went into lockdown this last spring, they were sitting around like a lot of us, and they were really kind of bummed out. Paul was a server at a restaurant, and so his job was immediately gone. And James was in a similar situation where his hours were cut way back. And they were really contemplating like what they could do. And I think it was Paul who turned to James and said, we could walk across America. And in about 30 seconds, they both said that they could, let's do that. Let's do a walk for peace. And I just kind of stumbled into a little event, a small event at my other friend's house, and they were there. And so I got to speak to these two young men for the past hour, and man, like they had the most incredible experience. They both listed off the titles of the books that they're going to be writing. James's first book is The Way I Saw It, My Experiences from Walking Across America. And I think they've got about 3 titles planned. And so I asked them, I said, what was your biggest takeaway? What was your biggest takeaway from this adventure? And they said, it's the most amazing thing. They said that that there is a higher power, and that when you set your mind to an intention, that the universe aligns to make that happen. And they said there were so many instances where they did not know where their next meal was going to come from or where they were going to sleep. And just miracles happen after miracles happen after miracles happen. They walked from Portland to Washington, D.C. It took them 6 months. They didn't walk straight. They stopped and they visited. On Facebook, if you do a search for Walk for Peace 2020, you can go down through, and they posted videos all along the way. And sorry, how do I make that stop? Okay, there we go. So they posted videos of their entire journey along the whole way. I was able to follow them throughout their journey, and it was just incredible. But to be able to just sit down with them this evening and to have those kind of conversations, my oldest son was with me as well, and my wife was kind of joking, and she says, you guys need to make sure that you're a good example for your son. And I was happy to report to her that I have just had one of the most spiritual conversations I have had in a long time. And it was just incredible, just incredible. And so tonight I want to kind of just talk about that, of like, when you get into a situation like they found themselves in this last spring, where they were out of work and they were wondering what to do, rather than do like I did and so many others, go into a deep, dark funk and, feel sorry for yourself. What is your walk for peace? What is it that you want to take on and, and make happen this year? There are so many things that we could be doing. And to see these two young men having had done that walk for peace, walk clear across America, and now the lives that they've touched directly through their walk and the books that they'll write are going to number in the tens of thousands, if not millions. And what an example. Holy cow. Like, that is just insane that they took that on and did that. So if you are just joining the call, Mr. Evans sends his regrets. He's not going to be able to be here tonight. So luckily you have me, and I hope that's not too big of a disappointment, but I'm excited to be here. So I have been in a little bit of a funk, and it seems like we've just kind of been dragging this whole thing out, doesn't it? The whole pandemic thing, and then there was the election and all of the things that we've just been dealing with, and and then we went through in January, I think it was about the 9th or the 10th, we all came down with COVID at our house, and it took me out for a good 3 weeks. I am still not 100%, but this morning I was just feeling blah, just blah. And I came down and the kitchen needed cleaning, and I just didn't want to do anything. And so I grabbed my headphones and I put on a podcast. And it's an author that I follow. My wife and I have had our own podcast, and we interviewed this author. His name is Gary John Bishop. Gary John Bishop is not for everybody. Don't go look him up if you are offended by strong language. He is Scottish, and every bit as Scottish as the image conjures. But he has some brilliant wisdom, and I want to share with you that wisdom. He began the podcast by saying, what needs to change in your life? Now, we've all got things that we want to change, things that aren't working or aren't working as well as we'd like them to. Okay? What is something in your life that you want to change? Does anybody have something that they're willing to share? I'll share mine if not. This is kind of on the spot. Is there something you'd like to change? Okay, I'll share mine. As I was listening to this, both my wife and I are self-employed, and having been sick for 3 weeks, we weren't working. And when you're self-employed and you don't work, the lack of funds doesn't come immediately. It comes about a month later, just because of the way that people are paying you and paying for services and things like that. And we are at the point now where the lack of funds is very apparent. And I'm having to move things from the special account, don't ever touch account, into the let's buy some groceries account. And so I was just kind of feeling down. And so what I want to change is I want to change our financial situation. I want to change that. And so when you've got that in mind, what you want to take a look at is, who am I with this burden? Who am I around this thing that you want to change? Okay. So who I am around this burden is, I am stressed. I am worried. I'm depressed. I'm grumpy. My wife would agree. I'm irritated. I'm distant. I'm guilty. Like, it's my responsibility to take care of my family, and we're in a little bit of a trouble right now. I'm out of communication. So people that I need to be in communication with, that we've got things going on, I'm just not communicating, and out of communication. I'm playing small. I am uninspired, and at the same time, I'm uninspiring. Okay? So when you take a look at this item in your life, you really, really, really want to tell the truth. Tell the truth. What is that like for you right now? What is the day-to-day impact that this thing in your life has on you? Tell the truth. Because once you tell the truth, then you're able to really see what the impact is. But until you tell the truth, you don't see it, right? Something that he said that was really amazing, that really kind of hit me between the eyes, is he says, we are addicted to the familiar. He says, some people will actually call it the comfort zone, but it's not comfortable. If it was comfortable, then there would be no problem just hanging out in this place, right? But we're addicted to the familiar. How many times will you put up with something over and over and over and over again, but it's always on your mind, always on your mind, always on your mind. Then you finally handle it and you're like, oh my gosh, the time that I spent worrying about that is 10 to 100 times more than the time it took to handle it, right? I get this way around like difficult phone calls that I have to make, right? I haven't met a deadline for a customer or something like that, or something didn't work out. And the time that I spend worrying about that is 10 to 100 times more than the time that it makes to just do it, to make that phone call, right? So we are addicted to the familiar. So the other thing that you want to identify is around this area that you want to change. You've had it in mind that you wanted to change. Either you wanted to start exercising or stop eating unhealthy, and it's been on your mind for some time, right? You've been thinking about it. What are the triggers that come up in your life that have you just push that away, right? There are triggers that happen. Identify those triggers, okay? So my triggers that have me not working to my full potential, I get headaches quite often. And I'm not sure what that's tied to. It's not ever been diagnosed, but I just get headaches. And so anytime I've got a headache, everything's off. Oh, I got a headache, right? And it's like my way out. I mean, my wife is super supportive and she just, oh, you should go lay down, right? Really what I need is a good swift kick in the tail that says, I'm sorry you feel bad, but we got to go get this stuff done. Another one of my triggers is, the kids leaving a mess around the house or something like that, right? Not cleaning or helping out as much as they should. And just generally being tired. Oh, I'm so tired. My back hurts, right? So that's a trigger not to, continue on and push through and get that next thing done. Also, I'll send something out for approval and my clients won't respond. And it's like, I've spent all of this time building a website for a client. It's all polished. It's all beautiful. I send it out. Hey, what do you think? And I get no response, right? So what happens when somebody doesn't respond to you? When you're expecting something, your mind starts racing. Oh, they hate it. They think it's lame. Right? You go immediately to the negative. At least I do. So those are all the triggers that have me not implement the change of being a better marketer, better salesman for our business, okay? So when you identify what your triggers are, now it's easy to see that you want something, the cost of wanting it, the cost of not having it, you've identified that. You've also identified what the triggers are. Because it's super easy to sit here and say, okay, yes, I am absolutely starting Monday morning, I'm going to start working out, right? What happens when that alarm goes off Monday morning? And maybe you didn't fall asleep as fast as you thought you would. It's like, oh my gosh, it just, Monday morning, and that goes right out the window, doesn't it? Okay. So if you identify your triggers ahead of time, then you can say, hey, okay, I see that is a trigger of mine, and you can avoid that trigger. Then it is so easy to sit here and say, I want change in my life. I envision changing. I know I can do it. Zen, all of this, right? Nothing happens until you take action. So what are the actions that you're going to take in the direction of that change? Okay. What are the actions? So my son moved in with us end of last year, and he gets up early to go to work. And it has been like this little time where I get up with him at 5 a.m. I make him breakfast, and I pack his lunch for him, and then I send him out the door. And that is our little time together. And I'm kind of ashamed to say that after I send him out the door, quite often I just go back to bed. I go back to bed. So one of the actions that I want to take, and I'm committing live here in front of everybody, that I'm going to stay up. I'm going to wake up with him at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm going to stay awake and continue to go through my morning routine. Another thing that I want to do is there has never been a time when I have picked up a podcast, and I follow several inspirational people on podcasts, or a great nonfiction book, and I just start listening to either, Brene Brown is one that I really love. I've got probably half a dozen of her books, and I can, on my Audible, on my audio program, I can pick up anywhere in any of those books, play a little Brene roulette, and just like, no matter what, it is exactly what I need to hear. There's never been a time when I have picked up an audio book or a podcast and not gotten inspiration. Never once. Never once. There's always something there. Or they'll say something that triggers another thought in my mind that gives me an idea of something to do. Now, why don't I do that all the time? Because you actually have to get into kind of a space to be able to be coachable. Do you have that experience too? If you're not in a space to be coachable and somebody tries to coach you, what happens? Irritates the heck out of you, doesn't it? It's like, you're not the boss of me. So my commitment is to be in a space of coachability, and to be coachable, and to start each morning off. After I send Ryan out the door, I'm going to pick up an audio program, whether it's a podcast or a book, and I'm going to listen to 30 minutes while let me see if my wife is listening, while I clean the kitchen. Now, that's not exactly all part of the commitment. That's like, I could clean the kitchen, right? Because that's one thing that irritates me. I generally, most nights, I cook dinner for the family. And my rule is I cooked dinner for you all. So now I have immunity in the dishwashing challenge. And so y'all do the dishes. It happens 50% of the time, but sometimes it doesn't. And I wake up and, the mess that I made the night before cooking for the entire family is still there. And it just chaps my hide, right? One of the things that came up in this podcast that I was listening to this morning is he said, you are not driven by your circumstances. And when I get up in the morning and the kitchen is a mess and I get irritated on account of that, that is being driven by my circumstances, right? We are not driven by our circumstances, okay? If you get a flat tire on the way to work, do you get irritated at the tire and kick it and scream at it and, throw a fit? Maybe. But does that get the tire changed? No. Right? Honestly, if we keep our kitchen, relatively clean on a daily basis, waking up the next morning and cleaning up last night's mess, honestly, if I'm honestly honest about this, it takes 30 minutes, right? And that's even like wiping down the counters and doing the whole bit, right? 30 minutes. And how much time do I spend being irritated? Guarantee you it's way more than 30 minutes. Okay. So that's part of my commitment is while I'm listening, I'm going to just clean up the kitchen. Also on my list is to just eat healthy. I've got diabetes, and so eating healthy is a necessity for me more than others. But it's, it's necessary for everybody, but it's especially necessary for me to keep my diabetes in control. And I just had a visit with my doctor where he said, "You're not doing a very good job," and so I want to recommit to that. And also I want to do some form of exercise every day. Now, before they shut down last spring, I was going to this amazing gym that, it was like, group training, but it was always, we had a routine that we went, sweat our guts out. And the last time that I went was March 17th. And after I went, they closed the gym down. And they have opened it back up, but I haven't gone yet. And I'm not sure I want to go to a gym just yet. That's kind of a cesspool of germs. But anyway, so really, really what it comes down to is if I was somebody responsible for my financial well-being, what are the actions I could take consistent with that person? And you want to make that same sentence for yourself. If you are somebody responsible for changing item X in your life, what are the actions you would take to make that happen? Okay, so you want to just come up with those actions. So just like that list that I gave you, the more actions you take that are consistent with that future, the more it becomes inevitable. Okay, I'm going to say that again. The more actions that you take that are consistent with that future that you create, the more that future becomes inevitable. Okay? So if, for instance, you have in mind that you want to write a book, I know there are a lot of authors on here. If you have in mind that you want to write a book and you're worried about the publishing industry and the state that it's in, and so you don't ever start writing your book because the publishing industry is a mess and you probably never get picked up anyway, and self-publishing isn't for you, right? Then you're stopped. But publishing is actually step 347 on a list of 500 to write a book, isn't it? It's way down the line. Okay? What is an action that you could take today towards the future of writing a book that you want? There's always, always, always something that you can do today. So think about that. What can you do today? There's always one thing that you can do today. And there's always a list a mile long of what I call the yeah buts. Yeah, but such and such and such and such, right? I don't have the money. I don't have the time. Yeah, but I don't have an idea. Yeah, but, right? How many times have you been stopped by the yeah buts? Okay. Now, there will come a time when you have to face, pitching your book idea to the publishing industry, if that's the way that you want to go. There will come that time. But I guarantee you, if you haven't started writing your book yet, that's way down the list, way down the list. And the same thing goes for anything that you have in mind to dream about, anything, right? There's always this thing that's 47 steps down the path that you don't know. You don't know how to do. And our mind will immediately go to that one thing and it'll say, yeah, but, okay? But there is always, 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 always one thing that you can do today. So that is the whole premise behind the Kingdom Organizer. The Kingdom Organizer is all about set your goals for the year, break those down. If you wanted to accomplish that goal in a full year, what would you need to do this month? What would you need to do this week? What would you need to do today? There is always a step that you can take towards this monstrosity of a goal today. always. Okay. So the more actions that you take that are in line with that future that you create, the more inevitable it becomes that you will realize that future. Isn't that amazing? Okay. All right. So have you guys all heard of Mel Robbins and the 5-second rule? Okay. So if you want to look, you can look up the book. She wrote a book called The 5-Second Rule, Mel Robbins. The book, actually do a YouTube search for her TED Talk. It's 18 minutes long and it's free, and that's way better than the book. But in the book, she describes this technique she calls the 5-second rule. And anytime you're up against something that you don't want to do, but you need to do, she says, if you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and by the time you get to 1, you jump up and do it, that it makes all the difference in the world. There's actually science behind this, because by counting backwards, we access a different part of our brain, the part that actually talks us out of doing the stuff that we should be doing, and it moves it back to counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And if you think of it like the launch of the space shuttle or a rocket counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, when you get to 1, you jump up and you take care of it. Yeah, that's it, Robbie. Yeah, that's Mel Robbins. And you just get up and do it. This also, she says, really works well when you are inspired to do something. Now, Rick talks over and over again how he gets these little bits of inspiration. And I've heard countless stories from him, and I've experienced this myself, where you get inspired to call somebody that's on your list, somebody in your second kingdom or somebody in your third kingdom. When you get that inspiration, do this little countdown thing, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and do it, right? At the very least, write it down in your organizer so that you get to it when you can. But 9 times out of 10, if you just take it on and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 that thing, miracles will happen.
Do it with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Gwenna, you're unmuted. Did you have a comment? Okay. All right. So any thoughts or comments about anything that I've shared tonight? Thank you so much for joining us. I know the conflict with the big game and birthdays and everything, but it's been my pleasure to speak to you this evening and share the thoughts that I had around this. But I hope that you can take a look at this and pick something in your life. It doesn't have to be something huge, but something that you want to change, and take it on and use these techniques that I've taught you today to make it happen, to use that organizer and to use it the way that it was intended and create a magnified life because of it. Shauna, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just had a couple of other thoughts that go along with what you've been saying, and those are wonderful, inspirational thoughts, Michael. Thank you. I've heard another thing of act as if, act as if you are who you want to become, and also I think Rick has said this a time or two. Do something that your future self will thank you for. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. So Brian Tracy talks about act as if, and I've seen him speak in person, and that he says that he actually put together a party once upon a time that was an act as if party, and it was dress the part of who you will be in 5 years. And so some people came as best-selling authors. Some people came as, these entrepreneurs with lavish, clothing and things like that. And he said it was very impactful. So, yeah. So, so Debbie, you're talking about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that if you don't act, inspiration has an extremely short shelf life, doesn't it? Right? So if you get inspired to do something, so my friend Alan Smith is on the line. I got the prompting to call Alan once upon a time, and I didn't do it right away. And I talked to Alan quite often, and I didn't call him until the next day. And I said, "How are you doing?" finally, after I called him the second day after the inspiration came. And Alan, do you remember this conversation? What did you say to me?
I'm trying to remember which conversation we had.
you said to me, "I'm doing much better today. Yesterday, I was having the worst day of my life."
Yeah, I do remember that.
And that was the day that I was inspired to call him, and I didn't. So inspiration does have a short shelf life, and it comes into your life for a reason. Today I was just, we were kind of down in the area where my friend Murray lives. And so I texted him to ask him how he was, and we ended up getting invited over to his house. And so we did it. We went over, and what an amazing event. And that was where we were talking with Paul and James, my two friends who have just walked across America. And man, I mean, I'm still just on a high from that conversation with them. And that was something that we just took it on, and we went. And I'm so glad we did. Like, it was definitely the highlight of the year so far. It was talking with those two young men. So all right, so my mother has some advice for me too. What were you saying, Mom? All right, ask participants what things they might like to change, and then work through that process you're talking. Okay, so does anybody have anything in mind that they want to change, that they want to walk through this process with me? I think it would help others. Joyce, do you have something in mind that you want to be my volunteer? See, now she's grinning. I'll turn her back around on her.
Well, I don't know. I guess there are a lot of things I'd like to change, but I've been trying to change eating, and I've been trying to change to keep up on the board that I'm the chairman of, and that was certainly something I could break down into doing every day, something, so that it doesn't paralyze me when I'm worried about it.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything they want to work on, or do you want to work with my mom?
Work with your mom, for Pete's sake.
Mom,
Take care,
do I
Mom.
have your permission to walk you through this process and kind of
Sure.
coach you? All right, this is awkward. Cool. Okay, so let's talk about your responsibilities on the board. So tell me about the board that you're on, or tell us
I
about.
am the chairman of the board for the Family Support Center, which is a counseling organization. They do both drug counseling, drug, alcohol, and just mental health counseling. And the place never has enough money. And so the board's main responsibility is fundraising. I'd pretty much rather die than do fundraising. And we've had one fundraising thing that they pretty much did while I was out with surgery. So the only success we've ever had has been without me. And so that's it.
Okay. All right. So what is it like? What is it like to carry the burden of being chairman of the board and not performing as well as you think you should? What is that burden like?
Quite a bit like what you said. I'm stressed out. I feel like a failure. I want to quit about every 2 days. I feel resentful because I'm old and I still have to do stuff I don't want to do. And however, recently I've been trying to get a better attitude. And what I have decided is that this is really the only area of my life where I am outside my comfort zone big time. And it's probably a good thing to be outside your comfort zone sometimes, because otherwise you don't grow. You don't grow if you only do what's easy. And so I'm going to try to stay in this painful place and get something done.
Okay. All right. So what are the triggers? What happens just throughout your day? You know, we all wake up and we think, okay, today's the day. What are the triggers that throw you off track?
I will do 75 other things that are all good things and need to be done, but they aren't that thing or those things that I need to do to take care of my responsibilities. So that's one. Sometimes I say I don't have any experience and I can't do this, and so I do that number. Sometimes I say, why do I have to carry this burden alone? Everybody else should be helping more, which they probably would do if they had decent leadership. So,
Okay.
it's COVID. We can't meet. It's too hard to get anything done. Ever since I've been chairman, COVID has been on. So we have board meetings by Zoom, and it's really hard to organize fundraisers when you can't see anybody. Anyway, I have lots of excuses.
Okay, good. All right, so identifying those triggers will help you to circumnavigate those triggers actually throwing you off path, right? So identifying that, you'd rather clean the pantry than make a
Amen.
phone call will help you in the future to identify that, like, okay, yes, it is a good thing to clean the pantry, but in the grand scheme of things, maybe that's not the direction that we want to go today. Or cleaning the pantry, I'll make that my reward after I make these phone calls. Right?
That's called habit bundling, and it is a good thing to do.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Something you don't want to do with something you do like to do. So that's a good idea.
There you go. And so once you identify those triggers, then you can actually rewire your thought process to to take different actions, right? Okay, so what are you going to do about it tomorrow?
Tomorrow, I am going to call the director of the center and get her update on the month. And then I'm going to make our agenda for our next board meeting. And I'm going to firm up the committee meeting for the subcommittee that does the fundraising.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. All right. So do you guys all see how that process works? There is absolutely something that you can do tomorrow or even this evening that is in the direction of the thing that you want to change. Okay. So identify the thing, identify the pain that you are in because of the thing, identify the triggers that throw you off track, and then identify the actions that you will take. And I would love to hear back from you of how that goes. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Again, Mr. Evans sends his regrets. He will be back next week. But thank you for joining me tonight, and thank you for being magnified in your lives and for doing what you do. And be sure to go onto Facebook. If you're on Facebook, go and look up Walk for Peace 2020 and see what Alan and James have been up to. Man, it was so inspiring just being with them tonight. And you'll be able to see that through their home now. They are in Provo, but you'll be able to see their journey, and I expect that information on their forthcoming books will be available there as well. So get that same juice that I got from them tonight of inspiration, because they are just two amazing young men. And I hope you have an amazing week. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Michael.
You're
Thank
welcome.
You did a great job tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time and honesty with us. So
Thank you.
Very much. And the final score was 31-9. Buccaneers won.
All right. All right. So I didn't miss much.
It was a really boring game, Mike.
No,
I saw parts of it, but I did miss the end. So
Yeah,
Thanks
they
so
just
much.
they
Have a
just
great
let the
night.
clock wind down. It wasn't anything terribly
Yeah.
exciting.
yeah, good deal.
Thanks. Have a great night.
You too. Thanks, Tasia.
Bye.
bye everyone.
See ya.
Good night.
Which baby doesn't get to live, so Glenna Castillo does.